So just so you know, it took me like 20 minutes before I left to find it.
I think we should all.
Presidents give all the members of the every time you president.
I know. I was at the front audience.
I need the paper.
I don't know about that.
You should get shot at. That's what that is.
It is.
I know. I know. Duck down. That's fine. We don't get angry.
Yeah, 100%. Good evening, everyone. The public has been duly informed of this meeting in accordance with Chapter 231 of the Public Laws of 1975 by posting at least 48 hours in advance a notice on the bulletin boards in Stevenson and Churchill School, a notice to the Township Clerk, a notice to the Herald News, and the Progress. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. At this time, we'd like to call upon public comments on agenda items only. Please state your name, your
Rose
address.
12 Bates Drive. For future meetings, it would be helpful, if possible, when there are policy changes, if the red line version can be included in the minutes so we can see what the changes are to provide comments, if any. And the other thing is for the transfer report, where we're transferring on the budget line items. Is it possible to have that attached to the agenda too? Okay. That's perfect. That's it.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much, Rose. Anything else on agenda items? Okay.
Okay, so under personnel, certificated to approve the employment of Caitlin Bohr as listed. We have a retirement of Sandy Rivera. We'd like to wish her much success and enjoyment in her retirement, I should say, not success, but enjoyment, best wishes. We appreciate her 20 years of service here. That will be effective June 30th. A resignation we have for Marissa Marino. I'd like to approve the home instructors as listed. For B, to approve the grant tutors and their positions. The mentor teachers to be approved, mentor, just one. And for the administrative leave, we have that as well. For number 7, for B1, we have the stipend approval. And C, to approve the substitutes. And that's it for personnel.
Motion?
Motion.
Any discussion?
None.
Ms. Jandoli?
Yes.
Mr. Feedy?
Yes.
Ms. Street?
Yes.
Ms. Altai?
Yes.
Mr. De Pasquale?
Yes.
Okay, under curriculum program, to approve the summer 2024 program outline. Under B, to approve the field trips that are listed. For C, to approve the attendance at the workshop as well as the reimbursement. We do have one that's coming out of IDEA, and that's it for curriculum and program.
Motion.
Discussion? Sue, on field trips,
Do a motion first. Who's
a
second?
motion.
Second.
Sue, on field trips, who's funding these field trips?
So that gets split, so the parents are paying basically for it. There are a couple field trips that the board pays for, but not field trips like this.
Okay,
These are
great.
field trips that the parents pay for.
Thank you very much.
Call the roll. Ms. Jandoli?
Yes.
Mr. Feedy?
Yes.
Ms. Street?
Yes.
Ms. Altai?
Yes.
Mr. De Pasquale?
Yes.
Under policy, to approve the second reading and adoption of the following policies. And under B, to approve the HIB investigation results as reported at executive session on February 22nd.
Motion.
Second.
Any discussion?
Nope.
Ms. Jandoli?
Yes.
Mr. Feedy?
Yes.
Ms. Street?
Yes.
Ms. Altai?
Yes.
Mr. De Pasquale?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Page 6 of the agenda, I'd like the board to approve the minutes as outlined on February 12th, 13th, 22nd, and 25th. Bills and claims is outlined on the bottom of page 6. Transfer report for the month of February. Board Secretary's report is approved for the end of February. Approve the tentative budget for submission to the county office, stated on page 7 and on the top of page 8. I'm asking the board to approve the advertisement for the relocation of the data closets at Churchill School on J, the maximum travel allowance. This is also for the budget submission. The travel-related expenses for the budget submission on page 8. And contracts for professional services for JCT for 40 hours of professional services not to exceed $5,600 for emergency technical support for our servers. On page 9, it's buildings and grounds as listed on the bottom of page 9. May I have a motion?
Motion.
Second. Any discussion? Call the roll. Ms. Jandoli?
Yes.
Mr. Feedy?
Yes.
Ms. Street?
Yes.
Ms. Altai?
Yes.
Mr. De Pasquale?
Yes. Thank you, Kathleen. Anything under old business? Anything under new business? Okay, we'll move on to committee reports. Okay,
Yes.
Okay. So for technology, we have a few items to share. There were some damaged Chromebooks from Churchill School that were, actually Churchill and Stevenson, that were sent out for repair. The repairs included cracked screens, broken keyboards, battery issues. We are in the process of obtaining quotes for a new door buzzer and alert system so that the principals and secretaries can visualize when a door is opened. There were some firewall adjustments made at Churchill School to ensure that the students were not accessing any unwanted websites. Several of the Chromebooks are now out of warranty, so they are combining, I guess, different parts and pieces to make them working, such as keyboards, trackpads, and cracked screens. There is a new open registration system in Genesis so that parents can register their children online rather than in person. And the process has begun to set up new Chromebooks for the fourth graders at Churchill that they will use through sixth grade to make sure that they are in proper working order. So that's on technology. Want to move to personnel?
sure.
Okay, so I'm just going to move right along. So Personnel Committee met on February 27th. In attendance was Dr. Cicatelli, Dr. Tribuco, Mr. Santana, Ms. Cafone, myself, and Ms. Street. Just staffing and recommendations for next year were discussed. And there were some questions regarding the staffing of our nurses. Just to clarify, we have 2 full-time nurses and 2 part-time nurses. And those nurses alternate each school. They spend a week in each school and then alternate.
Just the RNs, clarify
Just
that.
the RNs, just the RNs.
The school nurses don't rotate, so Stevenson, school nurse stays at Stevenson, and Churchill stays at Churchill. So we have part-time RNs. And then those are the ones that will alternate weeks, so this way that if they cover for a teacher, a nurse that is absent, the students know who they are.
Thank you. There was also a blast that was sent out to families regarding the need for lunch aides, recess aides, and substitute teachers. So the internal protocols now reflect that you can substitute teach in the building that your child attends. You just would not be able to substitute teach in that child's class. And if anyone is interested, you can reach out to Dr. Tribuco or Mr. Santana. Business administrator interviews are ongoing, as well as superintendent interviews, and I will defer
So-
to Anthony.
Thank you very
Mr.
much,
DePascal.
Angela. So we've had 63 applicants for the superintendent position. It's been an ongoing process over the course of the last 3 weeks, and we still have a couple weeks ahead of us before we can kind of narrow down the selection. It's going very well. It's definitely extremely tasking. We're interviewing on Sundays, anywhere from 3 to 5 hours. We've done that for the last 3 Sundays, with this Saturday and Sunday included. It'll be over 4 or 5 days, and then from there, we'll narrow down the selection from, first round interviews to second round interviews, and then finally a third interview where we'll hopefully get the candidates into the schools to walk around and kind of get a feel for Fairfield as a district. So things are going very well, and we're very hopeful.
Okay. So, Dr. Cicatelli, Ms. Morano, John Persino from Buildings and Grounds Supervisor, and then Rodney Watkins from DeCara and Rubino, met with Anthony and myself for a Buildings and Grounds meeting. Look, no surprises here, right? We have some fixing to do with the schools, about $9.3 million in repairs over the next 5 years. The good news is, for the boilers and the Churchill roof replacement, those are already budgeted for this summer and next summer. But there's still a lot to be done at both of those schools. Some of those repairs would have been covered in the old referendum that didn't pass, but we're looking at them now. And that $9.3 million, just to point out, that is based on today's pricing. So the architect will look at other districts and say, what is our average price? And that's an estimate, right? So 3 years from now, if we go to do something that costs $1 million, it could cost more than that. But that's part of our 5-year plan. Once we finish the budgeting and finish deciding how much we could spend each year, we'll determine how we can address all those issues. We are waiting to hear back from PSE&G. We have an initial meeting tomorrow to see if they could potentially replace some or all of the boiler issues that we have for much less cost. So maybe there's some good news there. And then once we have the budget finished and our 5-year plan put together, we'll put a presentation for that. Anthony, anything to add?
Joe, just to point out that the money for the roof is already allocated for. It's
Yeah.
there and it's allocated
It's
for. It's not
allocated.
funding that we're going out to get. We already have it,
Correct.
and it's specifically for the roof project.
Correct.
Correct. Okay. Great. Thank you.
Immediately after the Buildings and Grounds meeting, we had a finance meeting, because it just makes sense, and it was myself and Anthony and Ms. Morano and Dr. Cicatelli. First, I want to just thank everybody that went out and voted and pushed for the vote last year in November, because truthfully, without that, we'd be in the same situation as last year. We would be in bad physical budget shape, probably be looking to make cuts, and we'd have basically a repeat of what we went through last year. So thankfully, we can avoid that. Tax levy did increase to 2.26%. The 2% cap is $281,000 of that. There is an additional health benefit enrollment adjustment that the state gives us. They have their own calculation of about $43,000. Our state aid, another calculation from the state just based on enrollment and some number that they put out, a budgeted number, that went up by 8%, so we're a little bit more than $1 million in state aid for this year. Our capital reserve only stands at $1.2 million, so going back to the $9.3 million, you have to use capital reserve money. We have $9.3 million that we have to fix worth of stuff, and we have $1.2 million right now. So we have to find ways to build that, save some money, and hopefully we can get things done a little bit at a time over the next 5 years. Some of the things that the district's thinking about in the short term, besides just the Churchill roof and the boilers, we have teacher negotiations. We have a new salary for a new BA, most likely in July, but sometime next year. New superintendent, and other costs that just go up over time, and some unknowns, right? So added placement for students that come in and have to be sent to another school district. That all costs the district money. So you can't budget for unknowns, but there are some things that we're thinking about in the short term. Long-term, thinking down the road, we are close to the 5% free and reduced lunch program, which will cost the district more money if we have 5% of students that are in free and reduced lunch. So that is something that you really can't plan for, but we'd have to have some money ready to adjust for state mandates that come with being in free and reduced lunch. The tentative budget was passed a little earlier. It is tentative. There are still some things we're talking about, working through, and just so everybody knows, you know, since June, it's no secret I've been here and I've been pushing Ms. Morano and Dr. Cicatelli to find more efficient ways, as efficient as possible without, you know, obviously cutting teachers to make class sizes bigger, to run the schools. And they've done a pretty good job. And I think we've talked over and over and over again the last couple months about what we're going to do. And one of the items that's still open, and is highly probable to not be around next year, is the subscription busing. So right now, even with subscription busing, the district pays $350,000 for busing overall. So there's busing, there's some that have to be mandated, there's some that's subscription-based. It doesn't cover everything. It costs the district $350,000. That should have been cut, in my opinion, for a while. And that's what we're faced with now. So with all of the potential costs down the road, you know, thankfully this year we're fine because of that vote in November. But with all the additional costs to come and the unknowns that are out there, there is a high probability that there will not be subscription busing. It would only be mandated for students outside of 2 miles from their school. Anthony, you have anything to add?
Just a couple things. So after spending some time with Mr. Feedy and Mrs. Morano, to say thank you is an understatement. Because if the questions did not pass, it's safe to say, and we went over just some of the calculations earlier in executive, we would be in a worse position than we were last year, looking to cut anywhere between 5 and 7 teachers. So it's a true testament to the committees that went out there, the HSA, the Ed Foundation, the community members rallying to get the vote passed. Without that, this would be a totally different conversation and much worse than it was last year. So thank you very much. I just want to point, the 1-2 that we have in cap now is after the $800,000 that, or 80, whatever the exact amount is for the roof. So that's after the roof money was taken out, we're at 1.2. So when Joe touches on, you know, north of $9 million in repairs, of $6 million would have been covered in the referendum. We have a tall task ahead of us to bring the schools up to date and make them safe. One thing that Mrs. Morano did, which I think is extremely admirable, is when she budgeted for the roof, she also budgeted for unforeseen. So if we do pull the roof up and we see that there is mold or there needs to be remediation, that money is already factored in there so that we're not going back out to the community and saying, hey, we have to tap our cap reserve more than what we've allocated. We've already built that in there. And if it comes in less, then it's great. But I think it's worthy to mention what Joe said. These are all based upon the calculations that our architect firm is using now, that are schools that are currently getting this work done. So he's using the quotes that are being quoted now, but if we do work 2 years from now and flooring now is $250,000, it's most likely it's going to be closer to $325 based upon the increased rates. So there's a lot of things that, you know, we're taking into consideration. $350,000 is what the district is subsidizing in busing. If we were to take that number and pass that along to the community, per the amount of kids on the bus, it would raise it roughly $1,300 per student. So whatever you're paying now, plus an additional $1,300. So we're taking everything in consideration. Joe's been working with Dr. Cicatelli and Mrs. Morano tirelessly in regards to numbers and budgeting, line items. And like Joe said, I think we're in a good place. Without those questions passing, it would be a much different story we would be having right now, a different discussion. So we're going to continue to work and see what we can do and you know, really be student-centered and make the tough decisions that are what's best for the district, just not now, but 3 years from now and 5 years from now and 7 years from now. Anything else, Joe?
No, that's it. Thank you.
Mr. Street?
Yes.
So CPAC met a couple of weeks ago, and Ms. Caphone gave a presentation, the difference between IEPs and 504s. It was very well attended by many of the parents, so that was great to see. I'd also like to just mention that a lot of the staff came out, some of our child study team members, speech teachers, OTs, so it was really nice to see them supporting this. The next meeting they will have, it'll also be a parent meeting. It'll be April 9th at 7:30. I believe it's going to be in the Churchill Library. And they're presenting special ed parent rights, and it's going to be given by an attorney that they're hiring. So that's April 9th at 7:30. The HSA just wanted us to mention that on March 23rd, that's next Saturday, a week from this Saturday, their color run. They'll be hosting a color run, which is also a fundraiser that they're doing, and the Tricky Tray will be held on March 15th. Tickets will go on sale next week. They'll also be accepting donations and sponsorships, so please look at their website if you'd like to donate, be a sponsor, or get a ticket. So that's it.
Thank you very much. I
May
just want to.
15th. I'm sorry, May 15th.
May 15th.
Yeah.
I just want to say and acknowledge Tracy Ripa, who's a co-president on the CPAC. Thank you for being here. And while I'm there, our co-president of the Education Foundation, Kristen DePatria, thank you very much. Touching on the HSA, just recently I spoke with Kathleen in regards to our maintenance budget, which we actually have some money in. And right now, the school board has approached HSA in regards to giving a facelift to some of the fields in town. So fortunately, we have money in a maintenance budget, which can only be used for maintenance. So our kids are playing in these playgrounds. We're really taking a serious look. We're going out and getting some quotes to kind of give them a facelift, make them a little safer. And that's going to be in conjunction with the HSA, who is willing to partner with us and provide some of the things that you would need when you're giving these fields a facelift, whether they're benches or trash receptacles. So we're very excited that they're extremely willing to work with us. We think it's equally as important to use the money that's in maintenance for maintenance, because it's the only thing it could be used for. And because, particularly in Churchill, our kids are playing on these fields on a daily basis. So to take a look at what they're playing on, I think we could do a little better. So, that's in the works as well. So thank you very much to HSA for that.
Okay, then I just want to touch on negotiations. So me and Ms. Altai attended another negotiations meeting. We are working tirelessly with the teachers and the attorneys to come to a new agreement. Thank you, sorry. Come to a new agreement, and we have another meeting next 2 weeks. 2 weeks, and hopefully we will make more progress.
Thank you very much. Anyone have anything else in regards to our committees? Okay, with that being said, we'd like to move on to public comments on non-agenda items only. How are you? Just please state your name and your address.
Melissa Padilla, 7 Henrietta Drive. All right, so I'm going to start, and if I can, also refer to Dr. Tribuco's recent email. I know you guys spoke about the budget with Churchill roof, which is awesome news. I'm glad that's already been included. My question was for Stevenson schools. So they had, Dr. Tribuco had sent a wonderful email, and he said that the roof is under warranty, and with every leak that they've been able to repair it. However, is under the warranty just replacing it? Because if you can't repair it, I don't know legally what's in their warranty, but at some point, will they replace it? Is that in an upcoming budget? And who is really making sure that there's no molds? Because I know they said that the roofing company has reassured us, but I've been in there personally for the book fair. It smells a little musty, let's just say. But so I just want to know if there's someone actually following up or really like on top of the roofing company, and if that's in the budget.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Any other question while you're up here?
That's basically it.
Okay, so I could just touch on Dr. Tribuco's email. I don't have a child in Stevenson, but Dr. Cicatelli was kind enough to forward it to me today. So basically, when there's a leak, it's under warranty. We call them, they come out and they fix it. Unfortunately, what's happening is when they fix one area, we find the leak in another. So they are responsible for coming out and continuing to come out to repair them. Now, obviously, I know John Pacino is on top of them. He's up there on the roof on a daily basis trying to identify the problem areas and make sure that when they come, obviously they come and they tackle the repair areas because they don't want to come back as well over and over and over again. Now, Dr. Cicatelli, if I'm not mistaken, when we have water that leaks through, we are monitoring that to make sure that there's no problem, no visible signs of mold or,
I mean, they have to test it. They can't just say that there's no mold.
Yeah.
Right? So they're testing, so
They're like removing ceiling. and
I'm not there to
looking in.
see
You-
it,
you
so
know what I
we'd
mean?
have
Like,
to, we'd have to get that.
Because I know me personally, the house has a leak, like, all right, once I see a ring spot, you have to take that sheetrock down,
Yeah.
right? You have to actually remove it
Yeah.
to see what's behind it, and so that's why I wasn't sure if we have someone on top of them, making sure they are doing their job, like you said, and
Yeah.
testing.
Mr. Pacino, yes, and we'll confirm that. And
Okay,
if
great,
you want,
thank
before
you.
you leave, you could just leave us your email address, and after we talk to John, we'll definitely reiterate his
thank you very much.
communication to you.
Thank you. so
Thank you very much. Anyone else?
Jenna Bozius, 22 Long Acres Road. Is there a possibility for us to replace the roof? I didn't hear you touch on that, like completely not doing patchwork, like if it's like a lemon law, if it's not working anymore, just get rid of it and put a new roof. Can they do that?
So I'm gonna, without seeing the contract or having it in front of me, I'm gonna say that it's probably not advantageous from a financial standpoint if we're responsible. I don't know to what extent, other than the pictures that I've seen recently, which are concentrated in, 3 or 4 areas that are really bad. We rely heavily on John to fill us in, and when we had our buildings and ground meeting, that wasn't even a topic of conversation, just other than the fact that there were some issues, they were addressing them as they came along. So again, we can dig a little deeper and speak with the custodial engineer that's on site and kind of get some insight from him and take a look at the contract and see how long ago they were contracted to do it, what it states, what the warranty states, and then see where we can go from there. And if it does warrant a continuous problem, we will forward it to our board attorney and say, hey, this is a problem, it's ongoing, they're fixing one area, it goes to another. What can we do? It's definitely an avenue worth exploring.
Great. Thank you.
That's it?
That's
Jenna,
it. That was easy today.
It's an easy one.
I have a few follow-ups. First, I just want to say that you obviously have the community support, not just in getting the school out of a dangerous financial position last year, but just generally. If there's stuff we need to do, repairs we need to make, increases, like, we're all listening. So we hear you. You continue to have our support. For the 9.3 million, does that include the roof?
That, yes, it does.
Okay, good.
It
All right,
does.
so knock that off.
And the boiler,
Yes,
and the boiler.
yeah.
At
The
Churchill.
roof at Churchill and the boiler at Churchill.
And Rose, just to touch on the $9.3 million, obviously when you're dealing with an architectural firm, they're giving you, in my opinion, the highest possible cost possible because, and Kathleen, the proper wording, when it comes to a school, the company has to be bonded, right? So it's not just everyone can just come and work in a school. But more often than not, what a lot of districts do is they go to this consortium, which is state-approved vendors who come in and they give you a price. Well, we've asked our business administrator and our architect to open that up to public entities, public roofing companies, boiler contractors. That's why we're exploring the PSE&G opportunities, so that we're not locked into just taking whoever's in this consortium and utilizing them, and to actually make it advantageous for the district to have 3 or 4 people bid so that we're not stuck with the highest bidder. We can go out to bid,
Get a little
narrow
bit of
down to
leverage.
2 or 3 qualified vendors, figure out which one is the best and more often than not, the most reasonable, and make a decision based upon that. So that 9.2 could be 7.5, or 9.3 could be 7.5, or it could be 9.3. But we've made the decision to, in that buildings and ground meeting, to everything moving forward, because we have a lot of things coming up, to get multiple bids and multiple offers from each group that needs to be addressed.
Joe, I thought the update was perfect, awesome. So that includes the roof. Is there a potential for any state aids or grants for some of those projects?
I don't want to speak out of turn, but I believe that's project by project based. And we'd have to cross that bridge when we get there. I think we've already done that for the two that we've already talked about.
So the 9.3 is like worst case scenario, and then if there happens to be
9.3 is
aid
worst
and
case
other-
scenario if we did everything this year.
Yeah.
If 2 years from now, if I went back and said, hey, that 9.3 really cost us 9.6, it's because we
Right,
did the.
inflation.
Right.
And Kathleen, what did we get in regards to state aid for the roof?
Oh,
On a total budget of
Yeah.
well,
$1 million.
that's very generous.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Okay.
fun up here, it
All
really
right.
is.
And then, I don't want an answer on this in the moment, but one thing that came to mind was like, might it make sense to just package this into one ask and just tackle it at once?
What do you mean?
Just. Yes.
Oh,
Oh, well, but here's the thing. Here's what I'll say. If you do that, that's what certain folks did and banked on, and now we're here.
Yeah.
That's all I'll say.
Yeah.
That was
and so
banked on,
No.
didn't happen.
Backup plan is
Right,
the approach we have right now.
Right,
But
exactly.
it just feels like, look, it didn't work the first time.
Yeah.
We're in this place now where we have to spend $9 million out of our budget and not necessarily the referendum. Like, if you have our support and the community is hearing everything, maybe it's worth trying again. Again, I don't know the cost of doing it, the
Yeah.
timing, all
Yeah,
that
So-
stuff.
it does take
Just-
time,
Yeah.
and it also is a big risk, because 9.3 5 years ago might have been 6. So,
Yeah, well, I think it's also noteworthy to just reiterate some of the numbers. 3 years ago, we voted down a $28 million referendum that had the average cost of $256 per taxpaying home in Fairfield. That same referendum to date is closer to $60 million with the 500, because of interest rates, with this $585 cost per household. And like I stated earlier, $6 million of what is now 9.3 would have been covered in that referendum. So, that we definitely need the community support, but like Joe stated, it takes a lot of time and it also takes a lot of money
Yeah.
to go out for a referendum. So it's difficult to hedge the community support
Yeah.
when you voted
Money
down
if it's
6 to
not
no
certain.
yeah.
Yeah.
last time.
I hear you.
Yeah.
What would the estimated transportation cost be for just mandatory busing? So if you cut subscription, there's still certain students you have to,
Yes.
right? What do we expect that cost to be?
We're basing it on mandated 4 buses, but I'm still gonna budget 5, but about $240,000, $250,000, just for mandated.
So the 350 goes to 250 if we cut
No.
subscription?
No, the 350 is,
550 goes to
Half of-
250.
now,
5,
Okay.
6,
but I
580.
think what's
350 is the cost of just subsidizing subscription
just
busing.
subsidizing busing.
Got it.
And if I'm not mistaken, Kathleen, what you shared earlier was because we're going from so many buses, which I think now we're at 11 or 12, to 4 or 5, the busing company goes out for a rebid, and the average cost of the rebid can be anywhere from $10,000 to $15,000 more. So if we were paying, hypothetically, I'll just use a round number, and please don't hold me to this, if we were paying $90,000 a route, now it's likely we're going to pay $115,000.
Yeah, we
And
lose the volume discount.
we're at the mercy of the bus company. So even if we do cut subscription busing, that $350,000 now becomes $300,000. But over the course of 5 years, that's 1.5 million with interest and so on and so on and so on. Yeah, it's a very difficult decision because we're struggling with transport your children or educate your children by keeping teachers around and offering more programs and keeping the teachers in the district. It's very different. It's very difficult.
Yeah, no, it was helpful to hear that it's the entire 350 that we'd be saving. I
Yeah,
didn't
if it was
understand
just,
that the first
if it
time.
was 100, I
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
Yeah, it wouldn't even be a
you
question.
know, would you, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Follow-up question to Rose's question. So obviously, and we've talked about this before, when you remove busing, then there's logistical issues at the school. We know there are still people that are using the buses, which eliminate the amount of logistical nightmares that we've had. And we did a really nice job in the beginning of the school year of quickly turning and getting the kids in and out of cars and not having lines down Fairfield Road. So I'm just wondering how much of that money would then have to be redeployed to logistical support and help. And so the whole 300,000 would not be saved. I know you get the 50,000 off for the cost of buses going up because we're not using as many. And then there'll be some hit to that number as well, based on what you need to do from a logistical standpoint, because it will get worse than what
Yeah.
it is today.
From a logistical standpoint, we, at this moment, are not 100%. So until we make the decision to say, okay, listen, this is something that we have to do for the best interest of the district financially, fiscally, right? Because we all take a fiduciary responsibility to do what's best financially for the district.
Right.
Right? So with that being said, when the board decides on that, then we will tackle all of these nuances, logistics, so on, before care, after care, how the parents who are going to be greatly affected by this. And let me stress, I'm one of them.
Yeah, no,
My child takes the bus,
mine too.
right? And I'm the one that's home. So this means that I have to, me, myself personally, I have to make accommodations to not only drop my daughter off, which now she takes the bus home, but also find the means to have her picked up. So once the board unanimously decides that this is the route we're going to go, and believe me, it's going to have to be, we all feel very, very strong and passionate about this is something that we're all going to agree with because we know it's the best interest of the district financially, or figure out a way to accommodate everything. But like Joe said, it's more likely than not.
I'll add to that. Figuring it, look, it's a Band-Aid, right? So if we figure it out this year, I'm only giving you a year notice, because next year it would probably have to
Oh,
go.
I
That's
just
really,
think-
I'm not, I'm just speaking in general.
Yeah,
now, just
in
adding
general,
what
though,
Anthony's
it's like,
saying.
okay, Tiny Treasure, the after-school program is gonna have to be revisited because there will be more kids that now have to go to after-school program. The transportation and just like logistics of drop-off and pickup and all that, that's gonna have to be thinking about. So that would be, we would have to engage the town, I would think, at some point in some type of conversation. So all those things take time,
All those
right?
things have
And if we're
already-
gonna do this in a year,
Yeah.
I mean, I just know from a, logistically, from a business perspective, when you're gonna do something in a year, you gotta start as early as you can, planning these meetings, having these meetings now. So we should be starting now if
Well-
that's the path we're gonna end
Well,
up
we,
at.
we actually have a pretty good head start, Tracy, because we've discussed this in the past. This isn't news. Like for those of you that are new to the board meetings, you know that busing was discussed 6 years ago, 5 years ago, 4 years ago, 3 years ago, 2 years ago, and here we are revisiting now. So we kind of have an idea as to what needs to be done. Everything you're speaking of now, we've talked about in the past, we've talked about in executive, and we'll continue to talk about it even further afterwards. So we are exploring every single avenue to see what is the
I get it.
right
I think
decision.
if with the writing is on the wall that it's going away, you've done a nice job of inviting the community into committees and different things to Rose's point, you have the backing of the town. So I would just encourage you to continue to do that. So if this is one big decision that's going to be made, maybe in some of these logistical scenarios, or like maybe create some dialogue about what does the after-school program need to have, what parents can contribute to those types of committees. All I'm saying is just think about it from that perspective, not just that people are going to be upset, cutting the busing. Financially, this is a different situation. Logistically, we've talked to the town. I understand that. You guys, I'm saying you're doing a nice job communicating and bringing the information to the town and to the parents. Bring them into this so that you're ahead of the game, and it's not just we're making an announcement, that parents will have been a part of the process along the way.
Thank you
just-
very much.
just
We'll take
saying.
that in consideration.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. Anyone have anything else under public agenda items? You state your name and your address, sir?
Frank Lamort, 4 Suzie Lane. So, I mean, I'm hopeful, but I'm also still, like, very nervous after, like, listening to a lot of the things we talked about. I just think we're still in a very precarious situation with the budgets and everything and financially. So, what I'd like to say, and I guess it's to Dr. Cicatelli and whoever the new superintendent will be, I just think we should really be watching, like, every little, like, the staff. I know personnel is private, but I think, like, staffing, important decisions about how we can, I mean, I've worked in business, how we can cut corners with certain positions, top heavy, bottom, because I just think that, like, every little bit counts. I also am curious, and I don't know if you can share this or not, but I've seen I had originally seen the superintendent job, I know of someone who applied. So I was under the impression we were going to consider like a superintendent principal/principal, which I thought was going to save us some money. And I think now the job description is just superintendent. I just think that like little by little, there's a lot of different jobs like that we could think about that are not going to, maybe make a difference if we can combine some things. Because I just think like in terms of these salaries, we know what we're going to be up against with what's going on, but we need to find ways to try to, cut some things or combine some things. And we're only a 2-school district. I mean, I grew up in Livingston. I mean, they had one superintendent. There's lots of schools. I just think a lot of districts around here. So I just think as you guys are approving the decisions on the minutes every time, and I know I'm sure you've put your time into decisions you've made, but I think we just really have to be careful because we're in a tough position. And I've been sitting through these meetings, so I understand about the busing. It's not a shock to me either. But I also know too, our town isn't necessarily set up for walking to school. And I mean, I live off of Horse Neck Road. My kids cannot walk here. They can't walk here. They can't walk to Churchill. So again, we'll have to do it. But I just think we have to look at every little thing we're spending, every decision we make, because I think they're all very important and they all matter. So.
Thank you, Frank.
Frank.
We appreciate it. Does anyone have anything else under public non-agenda items? Okay. With that being said, next meeting. Be it resolved that the next meeting will be held in person on April 25th, 2024. Public work session beginning at 6 p.m., followed by executive session, with public session resuming at approximately 7:30 at the Fairfield Municipal Building.
Motion?
Oh,
Second.
Do a roll call.
Yes.
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 Thank you.